Imagine for a moment that this is you. It's the 15th century, and you're a scribe in a monastery somewhere in Europe. Your job is to write Bible scriptures by hand, using nothing other than a feathered pen. And then as you're sitting in this scriptorium, a fellow scribe comes into the room and hands you a book. This book looks like pretty much any other Bible scripture that you've seen, but as you start to flick through the pages and you open it up, you realize that it's been created in a new way. This fellow scribe tells you that this book was created by a person called Gutenberg using the printing press. And as you flick through the pages, you realize very quickly that everything you do in your life is going to change very quickly. I love this image because I can relate to it. In my job as an executive creative director at Frog, I spend a lot of time thinking about the future. Not only about the future of interaction design and the beautiful discussions that we've been having between yesterday and today and throughout the week, but also how we make things, where our craft is going, the tools we're using. And I was thinking about Alok's presentation earlier today about redefining what design really means. And in this case, maybe I'm speaking to applied design here. What I will introduce today in my presentation are three themes that I believe are critical to understand where our craft and our discipline is going. And the first topic I want to speak to is democratization. The general idea that a large group of people all around the world with different backgrounds and different experiences are starting to participate and contribute to design. That the barriers to entry are starting to diminish. And we see two things that are critical to this. The first one is the increase and the rise in design literacy. The fact that people are spending more and more time with products and services, and they're starting to raise their expectations around what good quality means. Most people are also creating contents themselves through social applications like Instagram, etc. What's interesting for me to think about is that the quality of this content is improving day by day. We've been talking a lot about design thinking and human-centered design, and we're also starting to see that commoditization of design processes. It's not so long ago where creativity was seen as a black box almost, where clients paid companies like Frog to solve problems behind closed doors. That is not the case today. Today we're solving problems together with clients, together with customers, and together with communities. And this is having a massive impact on how we work. We're also seeing a growing platform for commoditized craft. And many of my peers as a graphic designer are sneering to this evolution. The fact that anyone can create a design artifact of high quality. What's interesting to me is that the perception and the quality of these artifacts are getting better and better. And the fact that people need no prior experience or design education to generate beautiful design. We're also starting to see artificial intelligence and machine learning bringing in skill augmentation into these kind of product platforms. Autodraw is one example, and we saw something similar yesterday from Google, where the tool is able to sense and understand a rudimentary drawing and turn that into a vector illustration in real time. This is a simple example that you can imagine at scale moving forward. And I believe these types of services will continue to grow in a way that would really disrupt the way we see our value as craftsmen and crafts designers. The second major theme that I see today is the industrialization of digital design. And industrialization really comes from a multitude of different things. And we're starting to see, as Alok mentioned before, monocultures. For me, it all starts from the context in which we're working. Companies like Frog, design consultancies that engage with clients in digital transformation efforts. And this has also become a buzzword recently, right? What does it even mean? Well, for me, as a frog, it means that we are able to engage with multiple clients from multiple different verticals and industries and really redesign every single product, every single service, and every single experience out there through the lens of human-centered design. And it's a very powerful movement happening right now. And industrialization comes into play when we're thinking about how we deliver those products and those services to the market. From a brand and experience point of view, we're asking how do we drive brand expression, craft, and quality at scale? Whereas from a business perspective, working with our stakeholders, they're wondering how do we save time and effort in delivering products to market? And the answer has been around in the field of industrial engineering for decades, where you use automation and robotics to drive the minimum amount of input in order to create the highest amount of quality in the output. And the example with the production line for Porsche is a perfect example, because right now, Frog is doing the exact same thing on the digital side, creating a range of new applications that allow users to interact with the Porsche brand, and creating also a system underneath this that would allow us to deploy this and bring this to market quickly and efficiently. So we're starting to see systems as the dominant way to deliver products to market. And in addition, as you've seen with all of the booths here in the back of the house, with all the new companies speaking about their products, we're also starting to see a lot of interesting new workflows emerging, right? With tools that are optimizing the way we collaborate between designers and developers, reducing friction. This is taking us into a context where the work is starting to, and the systems that we're creating are starting to get automated. There are a lot of interesting things that are happening in terms of open source tools. The fact that we're starting to blend generative design with user experience design. And in the example, like you can see here in the center from Airbnb, using technologies to automate design processes. And what they're doing here is essentially using computer vision to scan low-fidelity, hand-drawn sketches to create full-fidelity prototypes in real time. And the impact of this is massive. Imagine the effort and the time and the cost that is saved in this, in bringing prototypes to users for testing much quicker. The new paradigm that is evolving is that the system is becoming really the clay that we're designing with. These tools are becoming the enablers to drive automation as the outcome. And there are two different narratives here. One is the narrative that automation is something depressing and sad, which I subscribe to on the one hand, because there are similarities in expressions, visual monocultures, and cultural monocultures that can thrive in this context. But there's also something interesting about this, which is happening for the designers, all the practitioners out there. As our systems are starting to get more and more automated, we have time to do other things. Rather than design teams focusing on producing assets and red lines and production design, they can focus on all of those big questions that we were discussing yesterday: ethics, diversity, accessibility, etc. And that's why I'm excited about automation. I also think that automation is going to enable a new movement in design. And here's where it gets really interesting as a craftsperson, where we speak about the augmentation of human creativity, where we're starting to see artifacts that are changing in their nature, that are not static, but they are living. Autodesk is driving a lot of interesting work in the generative field of design, being able to input variables to help a machine-oriented system to drive creative solutions. When you think about this in terms of the digital fields that I often engage with, and the work that I often do, it's possible to imagine that these variations, these different states of a product and of an artifact, can coexist and be built into the artifact in the future. So that one single state is not the only representation of something, but we will have thousands of variations built into that artifact. And this means that we will be able to create systems that can self-deploy a new variation of the same product or the same artifact in real time, potentially based on the context of the user or real-time feedback that is happening in the interaction. Once we have these new types of systems and these new types of artifacts in place, we're going to start to see new ways of mapping these different states out, understanding what is the correlation between the states and the relationships to each other. By direct input into these manifolds, we're going to be able to see what the impact and be able to simulate potential outcomes. Through variables, we're going to be able to start asking the systems, what is the most appropriate design in this case, based on the inputs that I've given? What are the least appropriate design solutions in this case? And as someone who believes that provocation is integral to design, we're also going to be able to start looking at opposites and play on the opposite side of the spectrum as to what is perceived the most appropriate solution. And this is getting really geeky, which I'm excited about. But this basically opens up a whole lot of new possibilities. The final point that I see as a great possibility in this new landscape is this idea of style transfers at scale. And style is something that is often associated with aesthetics or visual execution. But I believe that these new smart, intelligent systems that we are creating that are in some ways automated and in some ways self-optimizing and self-sufficient, in these cases, style can apply also to information architecture or the optimal path through a flow, etc. It's not about visual design or execution from a visual point of view. But what's happening with the idea of style transfers is that an input image can be altered by a style image. So you're seeing this baseline animation of Pablo Picasso, and the style images that are put into the system are affecting the visual execution of this output image in real time. Now, this is something that is now being explored in the space of art, machine learning-driven art. But just imagine when we can bring these types of tools to be deployed in design systems, design for design systems, and product design. It will be massive. So what I really start seeing right now is a new dimension to how we're creating things. And one of the things that upsets me a little bit as a designer, celebrating my 20th year in design, is that all of our tools that we are working with today, my first tool was Photoshop 4, they haven't really changed. The mental model for the creative process and how we generate design are still pretty much the same as what we saw 20 years ago. And I'm hoping that all of these providers of tools and these companies that are out there presenting in the back of the house, that they are working on things that are a little bit more radical. The reason no one is speaking about craft in this room between yesterday and today is that it's gotten so boring and predictable. And I'm hoping that these new tools will push creativity into a new era. So going back to the scribe in the beginning, my belief is that we will see a similar situation in the coming years, where we will see a new product or a new service being created in a completely new way. And at that point, we have the chance, all of us here as practitioners, to understand what we want to do. If we want to continue writing Bible scriptures with a feather pen, or if we want to give shape to this new machine. Thank you.